But trust me, Khalilah, risking it all can lead to something beautiful. Their eyes locked, vulnerability shimmering between them, thick like honey. Silence stretched, a moment hanging delicately before everything fractured with Ayo leaning closer, steady and unwavering. He brushed a stray hair behind her ear, the gentle touch a quiet promise. Khalilah's breath caught as he moved even nearer, the world around them evaporating into nothing. And just as their lips were about to meet, the door swung wide, a gust of cold air whipping inside, startling them both back to reality. "Hey, lovelies, save some of that chemistry for later." Her friend, Lila, burst through the door with an infectious laugh, quickly followed by Jace, who tilted his head knowingly. Khalilah flushed deep red, her heart pounding as she shot a warning glance towards Ayo, who merely grinned, his gaze still smoldering, unwavering. As laughter spilled between friends, she knew the night was far from over, and with each heartbeat, the thought lingered. What was she willing to risk for something so beautiful? Scene 42. Facing reality. The plush leather seats of the upscale cafe exuded warmth, a stark contrast to the overcast skies beyond the tall glass windows. Khalilah Raye sat at a corner table, her fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty coffee cup, as if its porcelain edge could offer clarity on the tempest swirling within her. Raindrops streaked down the glass, mirroring the heavy thoughts that crowded her mind, recollections and decisions that felt like ghosts, lingering just out of reach. Across from her, Ayo Kanala leaned back in his chair, his presence both commanding and inviting. The slight curl of his lips, designed to soothe, only served to amplify the tension crackling between them. His dark brown eyes, warm yet mysterious, flitted toward the window, watching the storm rather than the woman sitting before him. "You seem miles away," he said, his voice low, though it carried a hint of playfulness. Khalilah's gaze snapped back to him, momentarily shaken from her reverie. "Elaborating on my upcoming article, you might say. I never pictured you as the elusive crime boss." Ayo chuckled, the sound rich and layered, drawing her in. "What did you expect? A top hat and monocle?" He mimicked an exaggerated posture, leaning forward as if presenting a grand reveal. Khalilah smirked but felt the weight of sincerity behind his jest. "Actually, I imagine you more like an artful strategist, well-dressed, leaving nothing to chance." "Careful, you might ruin my reputation," he teased, but the flicker of vulnerability in his stance contradicted his bravado. "What's really on your mind, Khalilah?" A sigh escaped her, layered with the weight of unspoken truths. "I'm just reflecting on my choices." She hesitated, the quiet words laced with a depth of emotion that hovered in the air, vibrant and raw. "Everything I thought I wanted feels so distant now." Ayo leaned forward, his intense gaze holding her captive. "Where are you now? What do you want?" Her heart raced, words trembling on the edge of confession. "I wanted control, a life mapped out in neat lines. But here I am, tangled in shadows that aren't mine, drawn to a man cloaked in danger." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers, igniting an electric spark. "You're not merely defined by your choices. You know, they're stepping stones, not anchors." "But what if they pull me under?" she murmured, feeling the weight of her past decisions, a failed relationship, her relentless ambition, endless fear of inadequacy. What if it's all too much? With sudden resolve, Ayo stood and rounded the table, capturing her hands in his. The cafe around them faded into the background, textures and colors blurring as his presence enveloped her like the tender warmth of summer rain. "Khalilah, look at me." She raised her eyes, swallowing the swell of uncertainty as she blinked against the storm outside. "Ayo, what if I told you that you're more than your past? More than this unraveling uncertainty?" His voice dipped low, sweetly earnest. "Whatever it is that haunts you, I want to help you face it." Khalilah's breath hitched, a tremor of longing yet terror coursing through her. "You don't understand." "I do," he interrupted, his thumb brushing over the back of her hand, grounding her. "Let me be the one to show you, to bring you into the light." A shot of adrenaline coursed between them, drawing her closer. "You mean help me?" she asked, a flicker of something deeper igniting. "Yes," he said simply, his gaze bold and unwavering. "Yes, I want to help. But first, you need to let go of those chains, if only just for a moment." And then the world fell away. Time suspended as they leaned in, his breath mingling with hers, sweet, exhilarating, filled with the unspoken promises of tomorrow and the dangerous thrill of now. Their lips brushed softly at first, a tentative approach like the whisper of leaves rustling on a breezy day, before deepening into a kiss that resonated with the weight of uncharted emotions. Khalilah melted into him, feeling unburdened, alive. The past sloughed off like raindrops cascading down the window panes, as warmth enveloped her heart. For that moment, all that existed was this connection, raw and real, igniting a passion that had remained dormant for far too long. As they pulled slightly apart, breathless and wide-eyed, Khalilah clung to that spark, the promise of something more. Ayo met her gaze, the mixture of determination and desire dancing in his eyes. "Now, will you face your reality with me?" She nodded, heart racing, knowing that together they would confront the shadows lurking in the corners of their lives. Scene 43. A proposal. The room was drenched in the gentle warmth of the late afternoon sun, casting long shadows that danced along the wooden floors of Ayo's office. The smell of rich leather mingled with the faint aroma of a distant simmering dinner, hinting at comfort amidst chaos. Khalilah stood by the window, the light framing her, accentuating the brilliant warmth of her mocha skin and the way her curls fell in effortless waves around her shoulders. She leaned against the window frame, half listening to the cacophony of city life outside, trying to ground herself in the moment. Ayo entered, his presence filling the space like a summer storm, brimming with energy and intensity. He paused, watching her, quiet and observant. She could feel his gaze on her, a promise wrapped in tension. "Did you think I wouldn't find you?" he asked, his tone playfully conspiratorial as he leaned against the door. Khalilah turned, crossing her arms, the corner of her mouth twisting into a smirk despite the growing seriousness in her heart. "And miss seeing my stunning profile?" "Never," she shot back, a flicker of her usual feistiness lighting up the room. "You flatter yourself," Ayo replied, tilting his head, his dark eyes narrowing playfully before the air shifted between them, thickening with unspoken words. He stepped closer, and the soft sound of leather meeting wood with each deliberate step echoed in her ears. "But I have something more than flattery on my mind." Khalilah tilted her head, curiosity sparking beneath the surface. "Oh, do tell." Her pulse quickened, anticipation threading through her veins. Ayo's expression turned solemn, his deep voice lowering. "I've been considering a partnership." He paused, ensuring his words landed with weight. "Between us. More than just business, Khalilah. A union in my world." Her heart stuttered at the implication, and though her mind raced with caution, she couldn't help feeling excited. "You want me to join you in your, world?" she ventured, struggling to tame her surprise as laughter danced on her lips. "Yes, but let's leave the joking aside for a moment." Ayo's tone shifted, serious and sincere. "I know your reputation as a talented, career-driven woman. You've proven yourself fiercely capable, but there's more at stake here than just career ambitions. I need someone like you, someone with a voice and strength, who can navigate the complexities that are headed my way." Khalilah's breath caught between fear and exhilaration. "I'm not cut out for your, world, Ayo. I barely keep my plants alive." She couldn't resist the humor now, but her eyes searched his, craving clarity. He stepped closer, breaking the physical distance between them. "You have no idea how much strength you possess. You think you only find sanctuary in your ambitions? You'll need more than that, Khalilah, and I'll help you. Together, we can create something powerful." "I've spent my life climbing ladders," she countered, voice steady yet laced with trepidation. "And you want me to leap from one to another? Just like that?" Ayo's dark brows knitted together, his gaze searching. "It's not just a leap, it's a flight. With me, you can soar." Khalilah felt the weight of his words sink in. The thrill of the unknown mingling with fear gripped her heart. "And what if I fail?" His response was instant, fierce. "You won't, because I'll be there every step of the way." They stood in silence, the air thick with possibilities, punctuated only by the sound of their shared breaths. She could see the intensity in his eyes, the promise, the passion, and perhaps a little fear of his own. "But you," Khalilah began, biting her lip before continuing, "this is who you are, a crime boss. How can I trust that anything you offer is genuine? Or am I just another pawn in your game?" Ayo stepped back slightly, allowing the tension to teeter precariously. His expression softened. No games, Khalilah. I only want you to choose. A partnership, not just in business, but in everything. Let this be about us. Her heart raced, and as they stood on the precipice of something monumental, she had never felt more alive. So this is more than just a professional union? Ayo's eyes flickered with something she hadn't yet named yearning, perhaps. It's everything. A smile broke through her hesitation, and she took a shuddering breath, heart pounding as they both navigated the labyrinth of unspoken truths laid bare. Okay, tall, dark, and handsome, she teased, embracing the moment fully. Let's see where this flight takes us. Scene 44, Love in Turmoil. The evening sun hung like a molten coin on the horizon, casting a warm amber glow that filtered through the tall glass windows of Khalilah Raye's sleek, modern apartment. The scent of fresh jasmine wafted in from her small balcony garden, a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere inside. Khalilah stood with her arms crossed, one foot tapping impatiently against the polished hardwood floor, the only sound breaking the suffocating silence. Ayo Kanala loomed near the doorway, his broad frame lean and imposing, eyes narrowed like thunderclouds. The shadowing light accentuated the sharp contours of his face, transforming him into an almost mythic figure, intensely magnetic yet intimidating. So, we're just going to pretend everything is fine? Khalilah's voice broke the silence, a note of disbelief threading through her words. She unfolded her arms, waving them in exasperation. You think I can ignore this? Ayo's gaze pinned her in place, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he stepped deeper into the room, making it shrink with intensity. I'm not pretending anything, Khalilah. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me? She scoffed, throwing her head back. You're the one who pulled me into all this. Her wide, expressive eyes sparkled with indignation, yet the hurt tugged at the corners of her mouth, signaling the conflict raging inside. Do you think I wanted this? He countered, voice low, yet steady. The way he shifted his weight caused the floorboards to creak, echoing the mounting tension. I didn't plan for you to get involved. Her laughter, sharp and quick, filled the room before she cursed the vulnerability in her voice. Well, I'm here now, and I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to save me, Ayo. I can fight my own battles. Ayo's eyes darkened. The flicker of jealousy ignited a dangerous spark within him. It's not about that. You know how this world works. It's not just your career on the line. He squared his shoulders, an invisible force only he seemed to feel. You don't understand what's at stake. Khalilah moved closer, still hurling words as protective shields instead of allowing them to reveal her heart. And you continue to treat me like I'm fragile. I can handle myself. You're not the only one with ambition. I want a life beyond your shadows. You think I'm casting shadows? Ayo challenged, stepping forward, his presence looming larger. This isn't just a game, Khalilah. These aren't just shadows. They're threats. At that, Khalilah paused, glancing away, her resolve faltering. The weight of his words sank in, resonating against the walls adorned with her accomplishments, diplomas, awards, reminders that she was more than her fears. Maybe you should trust me, she whispered, vulnerability cracking through her bravado. I'm trying to navigate my path, too. Silence stretched between them, electric and taut, until his voice softening broke through. I just don't want to lose you, not to a world I'm trying to escape from. Khalilah turned back to him, her breath hitching, the intensity of the moment drawing them closer. But I can't decide between you and my career, not when everything is falling apart around me. I want to embrace this love, but it feels like it'll destroy you? Ayo asked softly, stepping even closer, the warmth of his presence wrapping around her like a cocoon. Khalilah, I don't want to be the chains that anchor you. I want to be the wings that lift you. The sincerity laced through his words hung in the air, their breaths mingling in the tight space between them. She hesitated, conflict swirling in her heart, but a dawning realization twinkling in her eyes. Maybe we can find that balance together, she proposed gently, her fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve, hesitant yet yearning. His eyes softened, the storm within him settling as she dared to take that step closer. Together, he echoed, his voice a whisper, a promise that stitched their fates tighter amidst the chaos. The impending storm had not dissipated entirely, but under the embedding warmth of possibility, Khalilah finally allowed herself to breathe, capturing a glimpse of hope amidst the uncertainty. And perhaps, just perhaps, love could be their greatest victory. Scene 45, Longing. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and freshly brewed coffee, echoing the swirling tempest barely held in check between Khalilah and Ayo. She perched on a high-backed stool at the bar, her fingers tracing a delicate porcelain cup. Watery sunlight filtered through the half-drawn curtains of the upscale cafe, illuminating her deep mahogany complexion. "Can you really trust them?" Ayo's voice cut through the ambient hum of chatter, smooth as the espresso he just ordered. His dark eyes pierced her, questioning, testing. Khalilah flicked her gaze upward. "You don't get to question my integrity," she countered, her tone playful but edged with a steeliness that made Ayo raise an eyebrow in challenge. "Then let me ask you this." He leaned closer, the warmth of his presence enveloping her like a silken cloak. "What do you plan to do when the story unfolds and the truth shatters the illusion you've built?" Khalilah's breath hitched for just a moment, a crack in the facade. "I already know how to write a story, Ayo. What I don't know is how to live in it," she admitted, her voice a whisper, as if the weight of her words might make them true. Ayo's expression softened, a rare glimpse beneath the armor he typically wore. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Khalilah," he said, his voice dropping an octave, dripping sincerity. But somewhere in his gaze lay a darker undertone. The tension of hidden truths thrummed between them like the vibrating string of an unplucked instrument. Khalilah swallowed, feeling their mutual unspoken vulnerability sway in the air. "Is that why you keep showing up like this? To break down my confidence?" she teased lightly, though her heart raced at the thought. "Maybe I just want you to see the world as it is," he replied, a hint of challenge returning to his tone. "Or maybe you're just trying to keep me in a cage," she shot back, half joking but well aware of the boundaries he walked. A smirk played at the edges of Ayo's lips, but his dark eyes retained their intensity. "If I wanted you in a cage, darling, you wouldn't have a say in it," he joked, his voice low and rich. Shivers ran down Khalilah's spine, but she refused to yield to the thrill coursing through her. "There you go again, trying to intimidate me into submission," she said, crossing her arms defiantly. "Not intimidation," he corrected, leaning closer still, his arm lifting to rest on the bar behind her. "It's admiration. You unknowingly walk the line of bravery every day. It fascinates me." Khalilah felt warmth blossom in her chest, a heady mix of desire and fear. "You're full of surprises, Ayo Kanala," she teased, unable to hide the curl of her lips. "And you, Khalilah Raye, are a beautiful enigma," he murmured, the tone of his voice dipping to an almost reverent hush. In that moment, his gaze appeared to unveil every soft vulnerability she'd shielded from the world, laying it bare before him. She blinked, suddenly aware of how close they were. The space between them pulsed, charged with an electricity she could scarcely breathe through. Khalilah cleared her throat, her heart racing as she caught herself wishing for a different tone in their banter, one that flowed beyond the boundaries of their sharp repartees. "You know, maybe next time you can just say those things without the facade," she sighed, my heart feeling heavy yet light all at once. His lips curved into a grin that turned the air in her lungs electric. "Where's the fun in that?" he replied, playful challenge flickering in his eyes. "Besides, you know you enjoy the chase." "Maybe, but I think I'd prefer a moment of honesty now and then." "Is that a dare?" Ayo leaned in so close she could feel his breath against her cheek, warm with spice and almond notes. "Maybe," she whispered, heart racing as embarrassment wrestled with excitement. Outside the cafe, an unexpected commotion of voices broke the tension. A couple arguing loudly over a spilled latte, temporary chaos that drew their gaze away from each other and back to the world outside. Ayo's smirk faded, replaced with serious contemplation. "This world isn't kind, Khalilah. I can help you navigate through it. Or you can be the storm," she shot back, uncertainty pooling in her stomach. "Depends on how you choose to engage," he replied softly. Khalilah took a deep breath, longing for the strength of whatever this was between them. "Then let's not fight it. Maybe we should find the truth together." As their eyes locked, something deeper ignited, promising chaos and hope in equal measures at what lay ahead. Scene 46, Fabricating Futures. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm orange hue through the expansive windows of Ayo's office. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and the faint musk of leather. Khalilah stood with her arms crossed, leaning against the polished mahogany desk, her eyes flittering between the blueprint for her new community center and Ayo's intense gaze. "What's your ideal future look like, Ayo?" She tapped the paper absently with her finger, her heart racing as she waited for his response. Would he reveal something about himself, something that could bring them closer? He stepped closer, the warmth radiating off him palpable, and she caught the subtle tension in his posture, a clenched jaw, the way his fingers grazed the edges of the desk, grounding himself. "You mean besides world domination?" He smirked, but his voice held an earnest note beneath the playful bravado. Khalilah raised an eyebrow, fighting the smile tugging at her lips. "I would hope for something a tad nobler than that." She leaned in slightly, using the gesture to entice him to share more. Ayo shifted his weight, his eyes darkening with intensity. "I want a legacy, Khalilah. Something that means more than just money. A place where people can grow, where dreams become tangible." He paused, searching her face for understanding. "I want to build something real, for us." The way he said us made the room pulse with a deeper meaning. Khalilah felt her pulse quicken. "A community center?" She probed gently, aware of the raw energy in the air. "That's lofty. Lofty's my middle name." He chuckled softly, the humor cutting through the tension like a knife. "But growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were slim, it keeps me awake at night." His voice dropped to a soft confession, and Khalilah melted a little. Those moments when he peeled back his layers always felt like a gift. She looked into his eyes, searching for the shadows that often stormed behind their depths. "I understand," Khalilah said softly, her cover flush with sincerity. "You want to make things better, for your past, your people, and for your future." With that, she impulsively reached out, brushing her fingertips against his forearm. A simple touch, but it ignited something electrifying between them. His breath hitched slightly, and Khalilah noted the way his body tightened at her touch. "What about you?" he asked, his voice low and inviting, drawing her further into their cocoon of intimacy. "What's your future?" She hesitated, the weight of her ambitions tangled with her insecurities. She began, but the words wouldn't come. Her brow furrowed, revealing the conflict within. "I want to elevate the stories of my community, show people what they can achieve, what they mean to the world. But," and there it was, the gnawing doubt, "but do I have what it takes to truly make a difference?" Ayo stepped closer, their bodies almost touching now. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. "You're brighter than you think. Each story you tell will resonate with someone, and I plan to ensure you're heard." He moved even closer, their breaths intermingling, his eyes searching hers with that fierce intensity that both terrified and thrilled her. With courage she didn't know she possessed, Khalilah took a leap. "And what about us?" The words slipped out, daring to cross the boundary they hadn't yet acknowledged. "That's the part we need to work on," Ayo replied, his smile both playful and serious. "I can't have you imagining me in a suit and bow tie while you're conquering the world in stylish heels, leaving me in your dust." Khalilah laughed, the sound bright in the charged atmosphere. "I'd never leave you behind. You outshine every room you enter. I'm merely trying to keep up." The air shifted, the playful banter simmering into a slow burn, and their eyes locked with a gravitas that begged for a reckoning. The moment stretched between them like a taut string ready to snap. Khalilah leaned in, their lips mere inches apart, heartbeat thrumming like a drum. "Then let's create a future together. Ayo, our future." Ayo's breath was shaky as he searched her gaze, and with a sweep of his thumb, he brushed her cheek softly. "Together, then." And before she could second-guess her audacity, he closed the distance, their mouths crashing together with a mingled fervor raw, filled with a promise long unspoken. She melted against him, feeling safe, cherished, even as the chaos of their lives lingered just outside the door. As they lost themselves in that kiss, reality faded away, leaving only the warmth of each other's presence and the sweet taste of possibility. What they were forging was bigger than them, a promise of strength, ambition, and unyielding love that would endure the storms coming their way. Scene 47. Whispers of Love. The dimly lit room glowed with flickering candlelight, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. The scent of rosemary and garlic wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the faint trace of sandalwood from the candles. At the center of the intimate setting sat Ayo Kanala and Khalilah Raye, the table adorned with dishes that seemed almost too beautiful to eat. Ayo held a glass of deep red wine, its surface shimmering like a ruby in the soft light. "Do you think love is ever really enough?" Khalilah asked, her hands cradling her wine glass, fingers nervously tapping the rim. Her gaze was fixed on the surface of the deep crimson, as though seeking answers hidden within. Ayo lifted an eyebrow, momentarily taken aback. "What do you mean by that?" "Love is, or should be, the foundation of everything." "Should be," she echoed, a hint of bitterness underscoring her words. "But what if it's not? What if love crumbles when faced with reality?" He leaned back, the chair creaking slightly under his weight. "Reality? You mean priorities? Job offers? Past relationships?" He chuckled, though there was an edge to his laughter, like a knife slicing through a tense fabric. Khalilah's eyes flared. "You say it like relationships are disposable, like emotions are just transactions. But I care about us, Ayo. I want more than fleeting moments." "Don't you think I want that too?" Ayo's voice dropped to a low growl, steady, controlled, but charged. "But what happens when emotions collide with my world? I'm not just a businessman. I'm involved in something far more dangerous. You think I can just sweep you off into some fairy tale?" "Maybe. I don't want a fairy tale," she snapped, nearly spilling her wine. "Maybe I want a real connection without all the hidden agendas." Her heart raced, irritated and frustrated, but most of all, wild with uncertainty. He reached across the table, his thumb brushing over the edge of her glass. "You know me better than anyone, Khalilah, at least the version of me I've chosen to show you." There was an uncharacteristic vulnerability in his eyes, a deep well of unshared burdens. Khalilah inhaled sharply, the vulnerability pulling at something deep within her. "Then maybe it's time for you to trust me with the real you," she replied softly, a quiver in her voice. Ayo stared at her, the flickering candlelight reflecting in his dark eyes, revealing an intensity that seemed to pierce through all barriers. "I've been trying to shield you from my world because I care." Because what?" she interjected, leaning forward. "Because you care? Or because you're hiding? Believe me, I can handle your world. I've survived my own storms, Ayo." He paused, the weight of her words settling like a shroud in the air. "What if I don't want to risk losing you? What if letting you in means putting you in danger?" "An even bigger danger is keeping everything at arm's length," she said, frustration mixing with desperation. "We're already standing on the edge. Can't we just leap together?" The room fell silent for a heartbeat, the tension crackling like static electricity between them. Ayo watched her intently, assessing her with a blend of admiration and trepidation. "Maybe I'm afraid," he finally admitted. "Afraid that if I let you see the depths of it, you might decide it's too much to handle. And I can't. I can't lose you." Khalilah's heart softened. "You won't lose me unless you push me away." She placed her hand over his, her fingers seamlessly intertwining with his. "Then let's start from this moment," Ayo proposed, his tone shifting to something more tender, laden with promise. "Let's build something real amidst the chaos." Khalilah smiled, a warmth blooming within her as she felt the weight of his words settle comfortably between them. "How about we make our own realities then?" she suggested, her heart daring to hope. Ayo raised his glass, a spark of mischief igniting in his gaze. "To our own reality," he toasted, grinning wide, "where we become the chaos coordinators." Khalilah laughed, a melodic sound that filled the room and chased away the tension. "Cheers to that, the chaos coordinators indeed." She clinked her glass against his. Their eyes locked, the unspoken bond binding them tightly, and for a moment, everything felt undeniably right, even in the face of their complicated world. Scene 48. The Reckoning. The air in the upscale lounge crackled with tension, an electric undercurrent thrumming beneath muted conversations and clinking glasses. Khalilah Raye leaned against the bar, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass as she struggled to process Ayo Kanala's last words. "Khalilah, do you realize what you're stepping into?" His voice was low, serious, yet it held an edge of warmth that teased at her resolve. Khalilah raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk dancing on her lips. Oh, you mean besides a life filled with adventure, danger, and a handsome crime boss? Her playful sarcasm belied the fidgeting in her stomach. She dared not meet his gaze now. The storm brewing beneath the surface left her feeling exposed. Ayo's expression flickered, his jaw tightening slightly. This isn't a game. The intensity of his gaze pierced through her defenses, and the smile faltered. And I'm not some figure out of a romantic novel. What's wrong with romantic novels? She retorted, forcing herself to meet his eyes, only to find the depths of his intensity nearly too overwhelming to bear. I happen to enjoy a good story. Maybe I'm in one right now. He stepped closer, the heat radiating from his body making her heart race. Khalilah, you're not just a character in my life. You're the entire plot twist. This is dangerous. The sincerity in his voice sent a shiver up her spine. You don't get to play the hero all the time, Ayo, she responded, crossing her arms defensively. People have secrets, including, don't. He cut her off, his tone sharp, yet softened by unspoken longing. You're worth more than being a pawn in anyone's dangerous game. Khalilah swallowed hard, aware that their banter had flared into something far more profound and reckless. And what am I supposed to do? Keep pretending everything is fine? Her voice softened, a tremor underneath. My world is crumbling, Ayo. You say I'm worth more, but I feel like I'm worth less every day. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. You were never meant to hide in shadows, Khalilah. The vault of wishes you keep locked away, they deserve to breathe. His fingertips brushed against her arm, and that simple gesture ignited the air between them, like sparks from a match striking dry twigs, threatening to ignite something wild and consuming. Maybe it's easier to hide, she replied, withdrawing slightly, a nervous smile creeping onto her lips to mask the turmoil. Hiding kept me safe until now. Safe or complacent? Ayo leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek, stirring a blend of desire and fear that left her dizzy. You have a fire inside that would light up the darkest nights, Khalilah. Don't extinguish it because of some ghost from your past. The mention of ghosts made her flinch. This past isn't just a ghost. It's a storm that doesn't seem to want to pass. She turned slightly, wrestling with her emotions. I've built something here, a reputation, a life, and now you're standing there, telling me to abandon that for a world chasing after shadows and criminals. His brown eyes bore into hers, fierce and unwavering. What if I told you that abandoning that world might be the key to discovering who you truly are? With me, you'd not just survive, you'd thrive. A deep breath filled the space between them, fraught with unspoken promises. But what if? Stop, he interrupted, his voice low and steady. I'm not asking for blind trust, just an open heart. Khalilah's breath hitched as the distance closed even further, Pelagnis the scent of sandalwood and fresh linen from his suit enveloping her. You have a way of making it seem so easy, she admitted softly, vulnerability creeping into her tone. This was the moment, the point where her heart dared to dream. And you have a way of complicating everything, he teased, a hint of a grin breaking through his serious facade, the flicker of levity cutting through the tension. You think that's easy? Honestly, yes, she shot back, unable to stifle a chuckle. But you're hardly the complication I need, Ayo. Is that so? Ayo countered, voice thick with playful defiance. Careful now, speak more like that and I might take it personally. The corners of her mouth twitched, the shadow of a smile breaking through. Good luck trying. Yet, beneath the banter, a surge of warmth swelled. Both were acutely aware of the magnetic pull between them. A fierce connection wrought in tragedy, ambition, and fragile hope. What will it be, Khalilah? His voice lowered, the weight of his question threatening to alter their entire lives. This was her reckoning, the moment to leap into the unknown. The answer loomed in her chest, heavy and exhilarating, captured just beneath the surface, and she could finally see it, the path ahead flickering with uncertain light. She hesitated, her heart pounding fiercely, the future teetering on the edge of what they might become. Scene 49, climbing higher. The sun began its slow descent over the city, casting a warm amber hue that flickered across Khalilah's office, its expansive windows framing her sanctuary of ambition. She sat at her desk, papers scattered like fallen leaves, every document a reminder of the battle to come. She wrapped her fingers around a steaming mug of chamomile tea, barely registered it as the warmth seeped into her palms. Today was pivotal. The community summit was only hours away. Outside, the cacophony of a bustling city swirled around her. Car horns bleated, laughter bloomed from nearby cafes, and somewhere, a saxophonist serenaded passersby. The sounds weaved a fabric of life that urged her forward, yet here she was, ensnared in her own anxieties. Ayo sauntered into the room, and in that moment, the world outside faded. He was a powerful presence, his silhouette thick against the sun, casting a long shadow that danced across her office floor. "You're going to shine today, Khalilah," he said, his voice rich and calming, like honey gliding over warm bread. Khalilah met his gaze, her heart thundering in her chest. What if I trip over my words? What if no one takes me seriously? She couldn't help but let the doubt weave through her. "Then you trip over your words," Ayo replied, his smile gentle, the corners of his mouth lifting with a warmth that made her feel buoyant. "But every time you stumble, you get up taller, more confident." He stepped closer, the scent of his cologne, a mix of cedarwood and something else tantalizingly earthy, wrapped around her. She raised an eyebrow. "And you think I'm tall enough as it is?" "Tall is relative," he chuckled, standing a few inches over 6 feet. "But your confidence? That's what really needs height." The door to her office creaked open, interrupting their moment. Thalia, her witty assistant, poked her head inside, her curly hair bouncing merrily. "Can I borrow your sarcasm for a moment?" She rushed in, full of vibrancy. "I have to handle a whiny reporter. Maybe I'll throw some in as the secret ingredient to my classic decline response." "Hope you brought plenty," Ayo responded, his teasing tone lighting up the room. Thalia grinned, then pivoted her attention to Khalilah. "Speaking of attitude, are you ready? You've got this, right?" Khalilah's self-doubt flickered, but she smoothed her blouse and pushed back her shoulders. "If I can survive a morning with Ayo, I can handle anything." "Hey!" Ayo exclaimed, a faux pute stretching across his face. "I'm practically a teddy bear of support." Thalia snickered. "Sure, a teddy bear with a well-polished edge." She approached Khalilah, her expression turning serious. "I see that look in your eyes. You're going to wow them today? Just think about why you're advocating. This is bigger than you." Khalilah nodded, her heart racing again as she stood. "You're right. This is about bringing our community's voice to the forefront, not just mine." Ayo stepped beside her, leaning in slightly. "And they'll hear you. You tell them what they need to hear. Your voice matters." Khalilah felt the truth in his words, the steady weight of his belief pressing against her. "Okay," she whispered, feeling the momentum start to shift. "Besides," Ayo added, an impish grin surfacing, "if they don't listen, I can always send in my friends to persuade them." She laughed despite herself. "Is that your plan? Just unleash your friends?" "Exactly, they're intimidating. You can't argue with guys who have intimidating in their job descriptions." "Ah, yes, charming and terrifying," Khalilah replied, rolling her eyes playfully. The laughter lightened the air between them, a perfect blend of camaraderie and desire blooming. "Whatever it takes to make my favorite advocate succeed." His intent gaze roamed her face, a gravity wrapping around them like an embrace. Khalilah swallowed, her voice softening. "You believe in me." "Always," Ayo affirmed, his promise hanging heavily between them. "Okay," she murmured, conviction coursing through her veins. "Let's climb higher. Together." His voice was a soothing cadence, igniting a spark in her heart. As she straightened her back, determination replaced uncertainty. Today would be a declaration of herself, her vision, and the strength they wielded together. "Then let's do this," she said firmly. With newfound resolve, she stepped towards the door, the weight of her aspirations lifting her higher. As they walked out together, the colors of dusk wrapped around them, a promise of something beautiful unfurling on the horizon. Scene 50. Rising tensions. The air hummed with the undercurrent of a brewing storm, dark clouds roiling overhead as Khalilah paced the length of her small office. She stopped mid-step, her gaze heavy on Ayo as he leaned against the window frame, arms crossed, his dark eyes simmering with unspoken frustrations. "Do you even hear me, Ayo?" she demanded, her voice sharpening against the crackling energy of impending rain. "I can't just walk away from everything I've worked for because of this, whatever it is between us." He pushed himself off the wall and stepped closer, his presence filling the room like the heavy scent of rain-soaked earth. This is about more than emotions, Khalilah. You're in danger. You need to understand that. Danger? Is that your excuse for controlling every part of my life? Khalilah shot back, her heart racing. You think you can protect me by keeping me in the dark like I'm some helpless damsel? Ayo's jaw tensed, and lightning flickered outside, illuminating the space between them. I'm not trying to keep you in the dark. I'm trying to keep you alive. You don't know the half of it. You think your career matters more than your safety? Khalilah felt a rush of indignation swell within her. And you think I'm going to let you dictate my worth based on what you perceive as danger? I'm not a pawn in your game, Ayo. He flinched at her words, a flash of pain crossing his otherwise composed face. That's not what I want. This is... He exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair, momentarily lost. You don't know what it's like to be in my world. It's not a game for me. It's life or death. Tension crackled, snapping in the air like the pending storm finally breaking. Then why drag me into it? She pressed, the fire in her chest mixing with an undeniable allure. If it's so dangerous, if you care so much, because I care about you. He interrupted her, his voice rising, raw emotion surfacing beneath the grit of his controlled demeanor. I can't just stand by while men like Taurus threaten your family. You make me feel something I never. You never what, Ayo? Her challenge hung in the air, charging the atmosphere further. Never thought I could. His voice softened, drawing her in. The vulnerability in his eyes turned their argument into something more profound. In that moment, thunder rolled almost as if underscoring the gravity of his admission, amplifying the pulse between them. Khalilah lowered her gaze, her heart thumping against her ribcage. So, your plan is to save me by keeping secrets? By lying about who you are? I'm not lying. I'm protecting you. His tone softened, becoming almost pleading. If I told you everything, you'd run. You wouldn't understand why I had to involve myself in your life. Because you see me as a threat, don't you? She turned away, the dim light catching the glimmer of unshed tears. That's why you're so intent on controlling everything. No, Khalilah, I see you as someone worth saving, he said, his voice steady as he stepped in front of her, forcing her to meet his gaze. You're worth more than this chaos. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of him, serious, intense, yet the hint of citrus from his aftershave lingered playfully beneath. And what if I don't want to be saved, Ayo? What if I want to feel chaos and all? He closed the distance, placing a finger under her chin, nudging her gaze upwards. Then let me help you feel alive. Let me protect that. A flash of resolve sparked in her eyes even as the storm broke outside, rain cascading against the window like a wild symphony. And in that overwhelming pulse of weather and raw emotion, Khalilah opened her mouth to speak when the phone rang, shattering the moment. She sighed heavily, glancing at Ayo, who looked equally frustrated as he leaned back against the desk, arms crossed once more, but the tension between them had shifted, a fragile thread of something deeper now tangible. Ignore it, Ayo urged, his voice low, keeping their space alive with the remnants of their heated exchange. Talk to me. She hesitated, yet the urgency of that ring persisted. It could be important. Or another distraction from what's right here. His eyes sparkled with a challenge, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly, teasing the edges of their bickering path. Khalilah smirked against her will, her heart lightening. You really think you can charm your way out of trouble, don't you? Only with you, he replied, leaning closer, the warmth of his breath igniting the air between them. Now, what will it be? The storm howled outside. She could feel the weight of impending choices hanging in the atmosphere, yet all she wanted was to take a chance, heart racing. Fine. Talk to me. Scene 51, a slow confession. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the room in warm hues of amber and rose. Soft laughter drifted from the kitchen, where Khalilah Raye stirred a simmering pot of gumbo, the rich scent of spices and smoked sausage filling the air. She maneuvered around the cozy kitchen with a sense of purpose. But the flush of her cheeks was more than just from the heat. As she watched the gentle boil, her mind whirled with thoughts of Ayo Kanala, his laughter, his intensity, and the undeniable pull that seemed to draw them closer. Ayo leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his presence usually commanding. But tonight, there was a vulnerability in his polished demeanor. He absorbed the sight of her, captivated by how the fading light caught the strands of her hair, framing her face like a halo. "You know, for a crime boss's protege, you're quite domestic," he teased, a playful smirk dancing on his lips. Khalilah chuckled lightly, hesitant but amused. "Don't let the crime boss title fool you. Even we ambitious women have to eat," she replied, stirring the pot as if it were the center of her universe. Ayo pushed off from the doorframe, stepping closer, his presence warming the space. "What's your secret ingredient?" He leaned over the pot, inhaling deeply, letting the aroma wash over him. "Is it the fear of me breaking down your door that adds flavor?" "Maybe," she shot back, playful yet serious, her eyes flickering with unspoken truths. "Fear can be a powerful motivator." He took a step back, his gaze piercing as he studied her. "You're not scared of me, though. Not really." Khalilah's playful demeanor faded slightly. Her jaw tightened, and she looked away, focusing on the simmering contents before her. "Fear and desire can be tangled sometimes," she murmured, barely audible over the bubbling gumbo. "Like snakes in a sack," he quipped, a teasing light in his eyes meant to ease the tension. But Khalilah didn't smile. She turned back to him, her expression softening. "Of all the things that scare me, my desire for you is at the top of the list." She felt a weight settle in the air between them, charged and heavy. Ayo's brow furrowed, confusion mingling with curiosity. "Why would you be afraid of wanting something? Or someone?" There was an intensity in his voice that lay just beneath the surface, hinting at something deeper, more urgent. Khalilah's hands trembled slightly as she wiped them on a kitchen towel, signaling a readiness to lay bare some secrets. "Because wanting you feels risky," she confessed, the words slipping out softly, almost like a whisper. "You're wrapped up in a world that scares me, Ayo. Haven't I shown you that I'd protect you, that I'd do anything to keep you safe?" He stepped closer, his presence enveloping her like a warm blanket on a chilly night. "Safe?" She laughed, the sound an escape from the tension. "You live in a world where safe is an illusion. I'm not sure where I fit into that, Ayo." She hesitated, emotions wrestling in her chest. "I've worked so hard to build my life, to be taken seriously, and then I met you. I feel everything spinning out of control." He reached out, brushing a thumb across her knuckles, grounding her. "And what if that spinning is what you need? What if it's a wild ride you've been missing? Maybe I've built these walls for a reason." Khalilah's voice was firm, yet the longing in her eyes betrayed her struggle. "What if I let you in and everything crumbles?" Ayo's gaze held hers, unwavering and deep, filled with both light and shadows. "Then we'll build something new, together." As the simmering gumbo bubbled in the pot, an electric silence filled the room. Khalilah lingered on the possibility, on the softness of his words, the intent behind his gaze. Everything she feared flickered in the air, mingling with the hope he'd sparked within her. In that moment, tension transformed into something sweeter, a whispered promise of what could be. "What if I want that?" she finally said, her voice softer, lighter, breaking through her hesitance. A slow, magnetic pulse formed between them, untouched yet palpable. "Then we both take a chance." A glint of mischief crossed Ayo's face. "Now, mind telling me what that secret ingredient is?" Khalilah's heart fluttered as she bit her lip, the corner of her mouth lifting in a tentative smile. "If you promise to try it with an open mind, I'll tell you." Scene 52. Unraveling tensions. The late evening air wrapped around the rooftop terrace like an embrace, with the city below sparkling as if the stars had spilled onto the asphalt. Khalilah Raye stood at the edge, her fingers brushing the cool metal railing, while the scent of blooming jasmine lingered on the breeze. It was one of those fleeting moments where the tension between day and night felt palpable, thick enough to slice through. She stole a glance at Ayo Kanala, who was leaning against a nearby pillar, his dark silhouette perfectly framed against the backdrop of twinkling lights. "Nice view, huh?" Khalilah said, attempting to break the suffocating silence that had settled like fog. Her voice, normally assured, wavered slightly as if the enormity of the moment loomed over her like an approaching storm. Ayo turned, a flicker of amusement dancing in his deep-set eyes. "You could say that. It's not like I've seen the city from this angle before." He chuckled, but the laugh tugged at the edges of seriousness, shadowing their conversation. Yeah, but you're always looking from the top, aren't you? Up there, in the shadows. Khalilah's words sliced through the air, her pulse quickening as if daring him to argue. It's called perspective, Ayo replied, his voice low. Everyone has their reasons for standing where they do. A beat of silence unfolded between them, thickening with the unsaid. She shuffled from foot to foot, the scent of rain on the horizon and the warmth of a distant streetlight playing tricks on her senses. There was a heat trapped in the space that made her want to lean into him, search for comfort in the heat of his presence. You've got more to uncover than just pretty views, Ayo, Khalilah ventured, her tone softening. I know you. You hide behind those walls. A smirk creased his lips. It's a good way to stay alive around here. You should know that better than anyone. I do, she shot back, her eyes narrowing. But sometimes, being alive is just surviving,